Assalamu alaikum. This is Pasha, the author of The Double Cross. I have another question for you. Did you see the second week in July, the school board in Florida decided to rewrite Black history here in America under white enslavement altogether? And to add insult to injury, literally, they stated that enslavement of Black people actually taught them life skills. So basically, by enslaving our people, they done us a favor, totally ignoring the brutal, sadistic rape, murder, and butchering of our people in unspeakable ways. They want to hide it, like the white serial killer and rapist that lives in the suburbs, has a wife and 2 daughters, and works as an architect. These racist crackers live in 2 different worlds, like the priests that rape children and yet are viewed as godly. This was signed into law by Florida's in-the-closet governor, DeSantis, with his punk ass. They are constantly telling us and showing us who they are and how they think. And we continue to ignore it. I can't say that enough. Do you know what state lynched more Black men and women than any other? Florida. Yes, more than Alabama and Mississippi. Changing the truth to fit their narrative is a key component of their changing the thought process of their victims. And yes, Black people, my people, we are victims. Victims that have been trained to kill themselves and to self-inflict our own wounds. And since all humans learn by repetition, we've heard the same old thing year after year, after decade, after centuries, so that we now believe it's true. We never read or check things out for ourselves. We now believe it's true. We never read or check things out for ourselves. Most everything we accept as true today was given to us secondhand. And still we argue like we really know. It's sad to say, but for the most part, we have been thoroughly brainwashed. We would have to be completely brainwashed when you ignore clear commandments like do not worship graven images. And yet we have pictures of a white man as your Lord and Savior in our homes and churches, even after being told, do not bow down to them by God himself. And bowing down, for the record, does not just mean bending over. It means also to accept a lie for the truth. If God, the Creator himself, has commanded you not to do this, and yet you do it anyway, thinking that you are worshiping God, obeying God, then something is wrong with your thinking. Your thought process has been damaged. It has to be when you ignore the being you profess to serve, his instructions, his warnings not to do something. And yet somehow you feel as though you are following his instructions, even while disobeying them. That's crazy. I'm sure everyone has heard of Hitler and his Nazi party and his cry, and you still hear today, his cry for a pure German Aryan race. Many of the so-called Jews that he enslaved and killed were Germans. But in his eyes, they and the other European Jews from around all over Europe were not pure. And do you know why Hitler decided that they were not considered pure? It's because he knew his history and theirs. He knew how Eastern European was developed into a Jewish nation. He knew about the catacombs of Rome and the earliest paintings of the Messiah on the walls of those catacombs as black. He knew about the catacombs of St. Domitilla, a burial place under the city of Rome, the Vatican, still today, that has depictions of the Messiah on the tombs of early Christians as black. Hitler murdered not just the Jews, but the Gypsies as well, because he knew their origin was black, Egyptian, and felt the Jews had deceived Europe. And most importantly, that they had watered down the European gene pool, polluted it. This is why all the talk, even today, about a pure white race, a pure white race free from the black blood that gave them life. They want to find a way to escape the fact that everything comes from the black, even them. Think if you are living in Europe among other Europeans, Germans, French, Russians, Poles, Dutch, Armenians, why wouldn't you already be pure? I could answer that, but I'll let you think about that for a minute. So how can we be all the degrading things they scream about us as a black race when we are their father and mother? They hate that. Is it a coincidence that the pure white race boys are always doing battle with the blacks? We are the enemy, not the yellow, brown, or red, us. And if you recall, Jesse Owens went up against the pure Aryan race that Hitler had created in the Olympics in Germany. Jesse and the other black men smoked their asses, so much so that Hitler was embarrassed and got up and left his first-class seat. Joe Louis knocked Hitler's pure Aryan heavyweight champ out in the first round. White supremacy is an idea, a concept. It does not exist, except in the millions of our minds, because we gave it life, and we continue to do so, worshiping the white man as God, the Son of God. And this belief has given white supremacists their initial claim to sovereignty. White people everywhere was made up and created by weak white men out of envy and jealousy of the black. The black Messiah and his mother were worshipped in the Catholic Church for over 1,000 years. This is why the envy turned to hate. This is the double cross. Europeans do not want one of the biggest books to transform the entire world to have been written by black men. They do not want it known that the people and the prophets in it are black. So they changed it to white. When the first pyramids were built, what conditions were Europeans in? They did not exist. Greeks were initially black, men and women, then the Minoans, and so was the Italians in Italy and Sicily. Italians are called swarty. When the second and third pyramids were built, where were Europeans? They were small, barbarian tribes, nomads, goat and sheep herders, coming up out of Asia, the steppes, and the Caucasus Mountain. Thus the name Caucasians. When we were doing internal surgeries, had mapped out the constellations, the sky, and bombed our royalty, where were the Europeans? They were in the Dark Ages. And just so you know, the term Dark Ages means literally that they were as backwards nations. A black plague infested nation with measles, chickenpox, colds and flus, smallpox, syphilis, and filth. Most of what they did now was learned through the overlordship of the Moors, black and brown people who ruled the islands we now call Europe for over 800 years. So, at what stage in history were Europeans, King David, Samson, Abraham, Jacob, Nimrod, or Solomon? Never. Everyone in the world knows for sure that the Egyptians were black. Everybody knows this. So let's just shine a light there, and I'll ask a couple questions. Why is it that when there was a famine in the land, Abraham, the prophet, went to Egypt, where the black people lived? When there was a famine, everybody in the Mesopotamian area came to Egypt. They came to the black people. Not just for food, they came for knowledge. We've all heard of the Greek scholars Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. But did you know that they studied in Egypt, then returned to European Greece, where a higher understanding given to them by black Egyptian priests? And as a result, they were hunted down and killed by their own rulers when they returned, who did not want them to teach the people what they had been taught. Jacob and his tribe of Israel were starving out in the desert. They too went to Egypt during the famine and were fed by a black pharaoh. When Herod was killing all the firstborn children, where did Mary and Joseph take their baby Messiah? Egypt, to hide among the blacks. If Europeans were the authors of knowledge and wisdom, why did Alexander the so-called Great, a European, travel to Cordova, Seville, Egypt, Cairo, and other known legendary black schools of learning and burn them down to the ground? Where was the appreciation for learning? They had none, only envy and jealousy. Their aim was to destroy and replace what was known, the truth, so that there would be no records, nothing to refute the lies they would eventually tell, and the blasphemy they would curate and compel the entire world to bow down to. And in case you don't know, they hate God. Not all of them, but at least the 70-something million that voted for Trump here in this country, the ones that created chattel slavery, black codes, and those that put up the white-only signs, they hate God. And they hate him because they see themselves as gods. And they will never, ever forgive the Creator for giving the secrets of the heavens and the earth to black men, for honoring the black woman by giving her a son by the word be from his mouth. They hate that. They hate that for they hate God for allowing the black man to heal the sick, the blind, to feed the multitudes with a couple of fish, and to bring the dead back to life, and to walk on water. So they changed all of it and said they did it. In Genesis 6, verse 2, Abraham's wife Sarah says, "It may be that I may obtain children through her." Her who? Through Hagar, Abraham's Egyptian black wife. It's common sense that if Abraham married an Egyptian in Egypt, that he had to speak the Egyptian language, because for sure, Hagar did not speak English, and neither did he. So in a land where English did not exist, how is it that the Messiah, listed in the Bible now, somehow all have European names? John the Baptist, Simon, Peter, Andrew, Thomas, James, Bartholomew. Come on now. Are we really still falling for this? Have you ever read the verse in the Songs of Solomon? I am black and handsome. The New Revision says, I am dark and comely. And even with that being said, they still can't get around King Solomon, the son of King David, saying in the Bible that he is a black man. I know you're thinking, how did I miss that? Read it for yourself. Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5 and 6. In verse 6, he describes himself as swarthy also. That's the European word used to make it unclear that he was black by revising Bible Europeans. But even so, the definition of swarthy means having dark skin. Albert Einstein, a Jew, is described as swarthy. And with millions of other European Jews, thus Hitler complained about this and decided to kill them all, to get the black out of Europe, to cut it off. Like I said, he knew their origin. Now, if Solomon is black, then his father, King David, who as a young boy slew Goliath, is also black. And his mother, Bathsheba, was also black. My question once again is, where do white people come from as the chosen people when two great kings have bragged about their blackness? Kings that are renowned, praised, and exalted throughout Bible history. Say it out loud. In plain writing, I am black and proud. Solomon chapter 1, verse 5, 6. Read it. This is the double cross. Assalamu alaikum.